Hey, what's up everybody, it's your boy Cypher7TCG, and I'm coming at you with another video today. We are going to be doing my deck tech for the Realm Rumble, but it is the hero I did not play, but it was the hero I was nearly locked in on until about 2 weeks before the Rumble, maybe a week and a half, and the Intrusive Thoughts Cannon, and I played Cannon to good success, and you guys will be having a deck tech on that very soon. Keep details on that. But this would have been the list if I did take Azalea, which I do think was the better pick over the weekend, and this will be a spoiler alert. We did see Brody Spurlock win the Rum 20K Invitational with Azalea. We do have some differentials with our list, but I do believe that the vast majority of us do have a solid core for our Azalea deck. So before we get into the deck, let's talk about why Azalea. Why would we be wanting to play Azalea in this kind of meta? When there's decks like Bravo that are really poor matchups for us. When there's decks like Dromai that both sides kind of think they win, but I think at least we've seen Dromai win against very few people. Why would we want to be taking something like this? Well, with the upped amount of aggressive decks, we see her counter, right? Dromai, really poor into decks like Ninja. Not as bad as it used to be, but obviously she has a very big trouble facing them. And Azalea just preys on all those aggressive decks trying to be up on the Dromais, because Azalea will have things like Hamstring Shot that say, well, your turn's going to be harder. You're going to have things like Red Letter says, you can do one thing. You have cards like Remorse that says, you can do as much as you want, you're going to take extra life for it. Azalea is all about punishing. And I think she feels more and more every time I play her like Tap Out Control, to name a Magic the Gathering turn, where Odom would have been draw go control. Azalea feels like tap out, like I'm using all my resources to do something impactful that is also still controlling the board. In this case, this is just controlling the game, right? So obviously equipment pretty standard here. You're not going to see a lot of deviation from this. Bullseye Bracers, Chronos Nest, Death Dealer, Finial Spring Tunic, Perch Grapplers, Skullbone Call Trap, and Snapdragon Scalers. About the only deviation you might see is someone taking in Dreadbore if they have a lot of Bravo in their meta. Where I do have a good amount of Bravo, but I have found playing in a particular way versus the Bravo as the Death Dealer deck, we can still have success, and we don't have to sacrifice any equipment slots to do so, where Death Dealer is just so powerful giving you the extra card. Going on to the main board, obviously we are running 73 cards, and I have changed how I sideboard. So normally I used to have an issue with playing over 60, which I don't think you are wrong for ever playing over 60. It can dilute your deck, and depending if you're not stacking consistent effects. So like if you're trying to do two opposite strategies, going over 60 can make your deck worse, but if it's all doing the same thing, going over 60 is fine. But when it comes to finding power cards, and specific power cards, the more cards you put in your deck, the harder it's going to see those. So I have kind of changed around some card slots in the deck that will allow me to pretty much bring us straight to 60, 61, 63 at most. Even versus Bravo, I'm not bringing more than 63 cards. Maybe if I know they're going to be ultra defensive, like maybe I know the person, I might hedge and actually bring the whole house. But like I said, we have a very adaptive set of cards here that all can really be impactful. So obviously starting off we have 9 Bolt and Shot. 9 Bolt and Shot. Bolt and Shot is the best ranger like arrow. I don't care what anyone says. Red Ledger's cool and all, but when people were talking about banning card like Alphylexia, for example, and no one caught on to how good Bolt and Shot is except for like a few people, I was so praying that LSS didn't actually touch a card like Bolt and Shot, because that would have been a big hit for Azalea. Bolt and Shot's like our best card. It's not even close. While yes, you can send like a bit of Red in the Ledger, right? But there are times where it doesn't matter. And if they block it out, you waste it a lot. With Bolt and Shot, you can not only still send something big, but you can then cheat on your reload or with your weapon and just straight up reload. And because it's face down, then you can cross trap it, so it just gives you more flexibility and knowing more information. As well as just natural go again, so you can send like a 7 Bolt and Shot, for example, and then still send the Red Ledger afterward. And if the opponent ever gives cards on the first shot, well, then your second shot's guaranteed to hit, or just take the rest of their hand at that point. That's why Bone Shot easily for me is the best arrow, not even close. I was going to be on 2 Drill Shot this weekend. This is one of the few cards I almost wanted to go to a third just to fight the Bravos, but I just could not find another card I didn't really want for the Drill Shot, even though Drill Shot is like my favorite way to attack the Bravo deck. And maybe if I was to rewrite this list, I might have just put the third Drill Shot in and just not even thought about adding something else, but at least for this weekend, it would have been only 2. Obviously, Drill Shot being a thing that can start hitting their armor against a lot of decks that run a lot of armor. So this is like Warrior, Guardian, certain tankier builds of Ninja. If you can start picking off their armor very early, that's how you really get in late. Because the issue that a lot of Azaleas do is they'll like send like a dominated attack and they'll use so many resources. And the opponent will just block with armor, and then their deck sucks and they'll never have tempo. Where if you just send regular big attacks and maybe even a few of those being Drill Shot and you like slowly get their armor, then when you come in with the big stuff like the Red Ledgers and the Remorselesses, you can know that they're going to hit and actually impact the game. Hamstring Shot was a new addition. I did not play that last meta, but this meta I thought it was very necessary with all the aggro going on, and even certain times into Bravo it can make some of their hands very awkward where they're either can't dominate or maybe they can't attack at all because they didn't make a seismic surge or something like that. That situation actually came up a lot in testing where the one additional mana being like a pseudo frostbite actually changed the turn so drastically. It's also 1 for 5 at the end of the day. Infecting Shot, a really good way to close out your grindier games because the extra 2 damage, especially if they are lower on blues in their hand, if they have that block with a lot of them, this extra 2 damage can be a pseudo way just to just get that damage in and then be able to block on the other turn because you can turn that card you blocked in. You can even say, well, because I had the Blood Rot box, I was able to block more, effectively having more life while still doing damage. It's a very small, nuanced thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Is having like these things like Blood Rot, having things like Ferocity actually allow you to block more and still get extra value out of your cards. Going to laces, we're running 9 laces. Obviously, your laces are your 0 for 3 pumps with a very corresponding effect, being Blood Rot, Frailty, and Inertia. Obviously, pretty good there. Premeditate being another 0 for 3 buff. This is what we like to call Ponder Run. This says next time an attack action control hit, you create a Ponder token. The next attack you play from Arsenal gets +3. Obviously, just being a 0 for 3 buff. Pretty good, and be able to get that Ponder token, and so you can just guarantee that you can opt with Cross Wrap at the start of your turn is pretty good. 3 round of trouble is normally a 0 for 4 in this deck, which is 1 at breakpoint, and 2 allows us to let me actually break down a lot of this card, right? Because everyone sees this card and is like, oh, it's 0 for 3, 0 for 4, haha. Let me yawn real quick. Let me get the yawn out. Alright, we're good. But this card actually does so much more in the deck, and people don't understand it. This is a fantastic Codex of Frailty target if you have a bunch of cards and you may not be able to use everything. Just having a free go again is just absolutely awesome. But the big thing that this card does, it just gives you information. This gives you information before you Death Dealer. Is it a pump? Okay, so then I know I can put this arrow in that's a little bit better. Is it a buff? Oh, sorry. Is it an arrow? Okay, well, let me structure my turn this way. Just having more and more information. Now then, it's even better if you've already put a card in your arsenal. Because then you can like, okay, can I dominate something? It's not a blind Azalea anymore, it's just, you opted. That's awesome. I'm on 5 Read the Guild Paths. As you guys will see ahead of time, I am on 0 Rain Razors. I absolutely hate the card, even though I acknowledge how good the card is. This effectively does the same thing, but only for the next arrow, but this also has the added bonuses of blocking. And I personally just hate having no blocks in my deck. Even though I do acknowledge the power of Rain Razors and what it does for the deck. I've chosen to be a little bit more safer with my effect. But obviously this is the arrow that gives +2/3 and allows you to opt. So you can find that arrow, or even make sure you have an extra buff on top of the deck. If you're going to send an arrow, you know what arrow to send. Obviously, the more information you have, the better. Random Ledger, second best arrow in the deck. This says you can do exactly one thing one time. I don't care how many action points you have. One good thing, and this came up in one of my armories, and everyone was just confused about the rolling, and this is just something secretly awesome that Random Ledger does. It says they cannot play or activate one more in action. It doesn't care the speed that you do it. So someone goes off with Kano, and they are on Red Ledger. Cool, they can play exactly one action. I don't care if they have 43 cards. Let's say they can play it at instant speed. If it's an action, can't play it. Dash IO. If they boost a card and they see an item on top of the deck, they can't be like, oh, cool, I can play it at instant speed. Nope, you've already played your action. This card just literally a lot of times does one on blue time walk. And then this is my favorite card to pair up with things like Seek and Destroy and Inertia. It literally just nukes their whole entire game plan. Also, Red Ledger is a card that allows me to block, which again, this is a thing that I had to learn. Is if you ever give yourself the ability to block, that's powerful. So let me give you a scenario. You send something at Bravo, this Red Ledger hits, right? And instead of sending something massive at you, dominated, they just send like a random like 3 for 8 or 4 for 8. Well, now you actually have the ability to block. You didn't actually have to take that much damage because hand to hand with Azalea, you're never really gonna be able to chain things like Bravo does. Like Bravo can just chain like dumb shit all the whole entire game. There will be times you can do that Azalea, but like not all the time, right? Because of how the competition of our deck is. So if I can then give myself the ability to block instead of for another big turn, because I run Ledger, it's just like warmongering someone. Warmongering someone isn't for the next turn, it's for the next turn. Because they're going to choose war, they're not going to be able to do a whole ton, you're going to be able to block, or you're going to be able to like soak all the damage and actually send something relevant. And it's the same thing with Red Ledger here. It's a effect that really benefits later rather than like immediately the next turn. Race attention, I like race attention, again, because of all the expected D-reacts that people are going to be running into us. This really helps a lot because that most optimal place is to put it in the arsenal. This is one of the few cuttable cards. I will say this is a card that you can customize for your personal metagame. Again, as I have a lot of defensive decks, I like the release attention. Through Remorseless obviously has the same static effect as release attention, but has the added benefit if it hits every time they play an action card. Regardless of what reason they're playing it for, they're going to lose a life. So obviously, like, this is one of your best cards against aggro. We're on one Searing Shot. Searing Shot is just there to be a Codex of Frailty target. It's just going to be a 0-5. That is literally it. It's 2 Sedation Shot. If Bravo was like 5% more than meta and became like 20% of the meta, I would probably add back the third. But it being like 10 to 15%, I am comfortable only on 2, where Inertia against like the slower decks is very impactful. And into the aggro decks, it can be good if they're trying to set up big turns against you, but they don't always have to. And if they're playing hand to hand, Inertia does get a lot worse. Seek and Destroy kind of for the same reasons here, except this one is a 2-block and not an arrow. But obviously this gets rid of their cards. They don't put it to the bottom, they just get rid of it. So if they're hiding power cards and they can use them, they just lose them. Use them or lose them. Sigil Solace has been a card that I was hesitant to put in my Azalea deck, but the more and more people I see playing it, the more I was like, okay, maybe I have to test this out. And start testing it out, and it has felt amazing. It gives like those hands that just can't do a whole lot. It gives you something to do, especially also against Warmongers, it gives you something to do. And just the left buffer against the decks like Bravo is not too bad. I'm on 2 Sync Blow this weekend as I've taken out Tar Pit Trap because Lexi's gone. And I found myself being a little more aggressive into the ninjas instead of playing more mid-rangey where I don't need the Tar Pit Trap. And especially against something like Fi and Dash, like you don't need Tar Pit Trap. Sync Blow is just a-okay, but obviously against Bravo, this helps really, really cushion yourself against Dominate. Sleep Dart is just an amazing card. I almost psyoped myself into taking this card out, But outside is Fi and Dash just does so much. Against Katsu, you can't fetch a card. Against Drama, you're not making Ash and getting Go again. And then I can just keep making the list go on and on and on. Actually, even in the mirror, if you're ever in the mirror, yeah, they have no chance to dominate against you. They can't even like switch out. If they have a bad card in their arsenal, it's just going to stay there unless they can get rid of it. Weathering Shot, kind of same thing for as Sedation Shot, where there's less decks that care about the Frailty token again since Lexi's gone. We need this effect less, but obviously against decks like specifically Katsu, this deck does overperform a lot. Or if Fi's own Kodachis, this card overperforms. Even against Emerald Fi, it's not too bad. Codex of Frailty, I don't even know if Brian Gobley's ever read this card. I don't know how you could make a card like this. Hopefully one day he just reads this card and just knows that this card is just overstated to hell. Deadeye, actually, in a lot of testing, I was willing to actually play in certain play patterns where, even if I'm playing a little bit of a worse arrow, if I had a yellow or a blue, I would try to intentionally get the aim counter on there. So, like, it might mean, like, playing one less buff, but being able to Thoughtseize them. Being able to Thoughtseize someone after already hitting them is just insane. Because now they're taking damage, and against a Bravo, I literally took away... Their hand was red, blue. And I was like, most people were like, and one of the reds was Pummel. I was like, everyone's like, take the Pummel, take the Pummel. I'm like, I'm just going to take the red. Because then they went back to their turn, and they looked at their hand and was like, I can't take a game action. Pass. And so, and like the Deadeye had infinite more value than the extra buff would have had, because then they actually could have sent everything at me. I'm on 1 Memorial Ground. I was originally on 3 last month, but this month I've taken it down to 1. As it being a no block, can't hurt, and if it's something you get off a Ponder token, or if it's something you use Alien, it's just all bad. It's all bad. But at 1, at least allows you to recycle your effects. Again, this is a card you can customize. If you just want a more sure thing effect and you don't really need to recycle arrows as much, you can take it out. Obviously, because you have cards like Knock that literally just says get whatever arrow you want put on top, Azalea it in. Not too bad. All here, draw line looking kind of strong here. I ain't gonna lie to you. And lastly, we have Spire Sniping. Spire Sniping is super one of the best cards in the deck, and most people would ask, well, scratch your head, I'm like, why? Why would a 1 for 3 block actually be like one of the best cards in the deck? Well, let's talk about this, right? As you're a deck that doesn't run a lot of blues, exactly we're running 9, right? We need our blues to do something, if it's like the lowest thing that we're doing in our deck. And the whole fact that obviously this blocks for 3 and pitches for 2, that's absolutely awesome. But even if we have to put an arsenal, this can help because we flip it off of cross wrap. We get to look at the top 2, rearrange them, help out our op better. We put it in through Death Dealer, awesome. We now get to rearrange top 2, see if one is sub in. The cards just diverse, and the one thing I want to preach is you always want your cards to be flexible. You want your cards to be able to do multiple things, and this is one of the few cards that is able to do multiple things. And this card is going to be a lock for absolutely ever in Azalea decks going forward. Well, guys, that is going to be the deck tech. I'll give you guys a little peek at I think this is the one build I've been using. Okay, this was the build I think I was just testing recently. But on my other lists, I think I'm running like a 79 or an 80% win ratio with this list. I probably made this list just to test out like one change or so. But the list feels good. Azalea feels good. Azalea literally just won an invitational with some of the cream of the crop players in the world, at very least in the United States or North America in general. So I think this list is legit, and it's also going to be getting a pretty good card in heavy hitters. Obviously, if you guys have seen it, you guys know. And just know that Sanskar Great Will is bad. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment down below what you guys want to see next. If you guys want to see a deck tech on a particular hero that I'm playing, let me know in the comment section. It's been your boy Cypher from TCG. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.